guess what time it is? Anybody? What time is it?
Are you serious, dude?
Yep.
Come on.
Say it.
More power, baby!
More power, baby!
More power, baby!
Yeah! I'd love to hang out with those guys someday. We've been dealing with this thing stock since we got it as far as the power is concerned, and it's time for that to change. Over the next few days, we're going to put every modification on this thing all at once, and I'll explain why we're doing that here in just a second. The deal is this little Honda isn't exactly a ton of power. Now, we're not expecting it to be a monster. I know it's a very streetable dual sport motorcycle. It's meant to do mini miles with low maintenance, and we don't want to ruin that reliability it has. But I also think there's room for improvement. And so I've come up with a list of modifications we're gonna do to this thing to increase power and hopefully not decrease reliability. Fuel consumption will probably go down, but this bike already gets stupid miles per gallon. Definitely not worried about that. Main thing we wanna do is just get this thing a little more peppy, a little more happy, more where I feel like it should be stock. We all know these things come a bit choked up from the factory. And to really illustrate that, we actually went to the dyno so we have a baseline to see where we started. The end result of that was this. We ended up with 24 wheel horsepower. We're dying. Lubricate.
So to help give us a baseline, I've come out here into the real world. The bike is in its Supermoto trim, so we'll keep it all the same when we redo the test. Technically, with the Supermoto trim, we do get a slight gearing advantage. Also, the speedometer will be slightly off, but it'll be the slightly off when we also repeat this test. I reckon we'll do 5 0 to 60 tests, knock out the fastest and slowest one, and average the remaining 3. I know this takes some launch into effect, but here we go.
Hey, it's me, the future editing Jake the Snake here. As you can see, I have one of the Insta360 cameras right in front of the speedometer. This was to try to help get a better view of what was happening. For some reason, I had the camera in some kind of like time warp mode or something. Not only is it not usable, but it's very much blocking the speedometer, so I'll do my best here. I can still kind of see the speedometer.
So the only problem with that test is it does require that I launch the bike and not screw it up. So I have come up with another test. What we're gonna do is we're gonna stay in 4th gear, 30 to 60. This kind of loads the engine up a little bit, takes it through the rev range. I think that'll be a bit more consistent. We just straight throttle it from a real low speed. It actually won't wheelie. Not much to brag about.
But to really understand how this works, how horsepower works, we're gonna go over here to the board. So how exactly do we make more power? This may seem very elementary to some of you and you may be bored by this, so I try to utilize the chapters in all these videos, so if you want to skip ahead, skip ahead. For simplicity's sake, there's 3 main ways to make power. We can reduce friction, reduce the weight of moving parts, and in the final way, the one we're going to be focusing on, burning more air and fuel. So to explain that better, I've drawn something that I'm sure you've seen before. It's the 4 cycles of your 4-stroke engine. We'll start with intake. Very simple, the piston is coming down. I've drawn the intake valve. This is obviously not to be in relation to where it is. Intake valve would be up here in the top. But we've got air and fuel represented by some blue and green dots I've made, and it's gonna get sucked in. Hooray! Piston goes all the way down, starts to come back up, and we're on the compression stroke. We're now squishing up all of our air and fuel we've sucked in. It's actually going to compress it and turn it into a vapor. This will ignite much faster. Spark plug goes off. Technically goes off on this stroke. Don't worry about that. Our mixture burns, not explodes. Explosions are bad. Push the piston down, making power. Piston gets to the bottom of that stroke, starts to come back up. Exhaust valve opens. Again, that's not meant to be in relation. I just crappily drew it close enough that makes it look like I'm just really insane. The piston's gonna come up, exhaust valve's open, we're gonna push out all that exhaust gases. So let's start with the exhaust stroke and talk about exhaust itself. We want to increase our exhaust flow. Right now we have a restrictive exhaust catalytic converter in there, more baffles than anybody wants. So a lot of people would just assume that the power made on the exhaust stroke is because of the less resistance that the piston has coming up now to push the exhaust gases out. And that is true, but the biggest benefit we get is that we can now get more intake air in. Why would that make a difference? If we're gonna get this exhaust to flow faster, when the intake stroke starts, this chamber will be way more clear. 1. Secondly, there's a little bit of what we call
overlap,
where technically both of these valves will be open at the same time. But with the high flow intake and exhaust, we'll actually scavenge out and fully clear out the cylinder. If we don't fully clear out the cylinder when the intake stroke starts, we still have a bit of old gas in there, hot, it's full of carbon and things that don't light, just doing everything it can to hinder our power stroke by having crap in there we don't want. The more cleared out we can get this, the closer to atmosphere we can get this when it starts the intake stroke, the better. So high flow exhaust, big benefit is we're getting more air into the cylinder. Let's talk about the intake stroke. This is much more simpler to understand, but if the intake is easier flowing, more free flowing, when we go to draw this air in, we'll be able to get more in. Yes, again, we will gain a little bit of power to the fact that it won't have to fight as hard to pull that air in. The bigger thing, of course, is to make sure that the air it pulls in is more close to atmospheric. And so those are the two that really matter for this. We want to pull in more air and fuel. One other thing that we are going to focus on is our valves. These valves open and shut. So you could think of them like doors. Let's say it's a hot day and the AC's running and you're going outside and dad's screaming at you to shut the door. Why is he saying that? Because when you open that door, you're letting all the AC out. If we open the door just a little bit, do it real quickly, jump through it and shut it fast behind us, we won't let as much air out. But let's say we're trying to tick dad off, and tick dad off is how you make more power in this case. We're gonna kick that door wide open, sling that thing open, let it hang as long as we can as we walk out, and just slam it shut behind us. Opening and shutting of these valves is very important. We're gonna mess with that too. So now we've drawn in all this extra air, right? Hooray. But we've made a problem because we still only have the same amount of fuel that we had before, which actually is already too lean from the factory. In other words, not enough fuel. They do this to make the EPA happy. We need to add more fuel here. Now, a lot of people, when we talk about tuning and actually getting the correct air to fuel ratio in the engine, they think, oh, that's just if you want to squeeze the max power out. I just want to put some loud pipe on my bike. I don't care about max power. But here's where you're wrong about that, because the bike, like I said, is already running lean from the factory, not enough fuel. All these modifications you do, even if it's just putting an exhaust on your bike, is going to make that problem even more. And lean condition is not exactly good for your engine. It runs very hot. You can burn valves up. It wears faster. There's a lot of reasons you don't want to run lean. We need to add more fuel. We need to make sure we're matching this to the correct ratio. Now I know you're thinking, but our bikes are fuel injected, Jake. They've got an O2 sensor. They're gonna automatically add all the extra fuel that we need, right? Nah, not really. Our system isn't that complex. And even if it was, like, cars have gotten way more sophisticated systems. They don't just retune themselves when you throw a bunch of mods on. We've got to get this thing tuned properly. Not just so it makes the best power, which, I mean, why do all this if we're not gonna bother making the best power, but also so that we can keep the thing running safe. Let's go look at some of the mods we have that we're gonna be installing over the next few videos. Oh, modifications. Over the next few videos, we're going to be messing, we'll start down here. Intake right here. This is some intake stuff. DNA air filter, I've messed with them in the past. We've got this, was it some kind of snorkel thing? You'll find out. Black Widow exhaust. Oh my God, we've not been able to get an exhaust for this thing. It's been insane. And these guys are over there, they've got them, and they've got like 20 different ones. It's gonna be super cool. Dyno Jet, Power Vision 3. We gotta tune this whole thing. Block off plate. Cams. Oh, what are these from? This is a secret. You'll see in the video that it comes from, but factory reliability and a big bump in power. Yeah, we're gonna do all these mods at once because we're gonna have to go get this thing custom tuned when it's all said and done. There's just no way around it. So if you're coming to this video from like another video and I sent you here, I said you need to watch this from the beginning, or you're trying to get a particular thing, always look at the chapters because this is all gonna happen in one go over several videos. What should we do in this video? Well, we're not actually gonna do any one of the particular mods. We've got the bike up on the stand and I say let's go ahead and just break it down. So to pull the fuel tank off, we'll need to sort of lift it up and disconnect some things. I've found to do is to lift the front up a little bit, get you some rags or something, kind of fold them up and stick them under the front just so we don't scratch the frame up. Grab the rear over here, we're gonna kind of wiggle it up off these posts right here, like a rubber hammer. Kind of stick it underneath so we can get underneath here and disconnect everything. This should be your overflow. Push that to the side for a moment. Fuel pump and meter. Easy to unplug. And then the one that's usually the most pain to unplug is your fuel line. Once you get the little safety tab up, what there's basically these little fingers on either side here. See, there's one tab here, and there's one on the other side. There's probably some fancy tool that'll hold both of these up, but I don't have it. So what I normally do is you pull one up, put some pressure on it like this. You gotta keep the pressure up on it. Spin it around to the other side. Ah, there we go. Cool. I have a gas tank. Little nipple that goes into the injector. Just wipe that off. I'm gonna put a little bit of tape over just to protect it, because we are gonna be doing some work in this area. And let's do a general sort of cleanup in here. It's a bit dirty, it's a bit dusty, and at some point we're gonna be pulling this valve cover off. We don't wanna get any sand and dirt in here. So we'll take some WD-40. We'll just do a general sort of spray around in here. It's not corrosive. Soft nylon brush, just gonna go around, just breaking it loose right now. We're not trying to wipe it off. Now she's all nice and clean, looking all brand new. Let's go ahead and pull the exhaust off. It's gotta come off eventually, and it's gonna be in the way of other things that we need to do. Let's get rid of it. Forward, or is it back? Back. Ah. You have to take it off to get to that bolt. And while you're removing heat shields, do you like the color of mine? We're actually gonna get to reuse this. We coat it to coat it. Well, the good news is, this bolt goes into the exhaust, not into something on the frame. So if we break it off, which we are, we haven't broken anything on the bike. Kind of twist it side to side to try to get it off of the header. We gotta be careful too that we don't scratch anything up in there as we pull this off. All right, here we go, it's about to come off. Easy. Woo! Let's remove the O2 sensor while it's still on the header. That'll be just the simplest. And because we have access to all things right now, we can follow this cable up and see it goes to this connector right here. This is a 17 millimeter. Put that somewhere safe for the time being. Now we can remove the header. Got a 12 millimeter on a little bit of a swivel. And there should be a gasket in here we can pull out. She's pretty much as stripped down as we need to get her. Next video, I think we're gonna do the intake. We'll start with the intake stuff. Hey, why not? That video is already available on Patreon. Not a part of the Patreon, you should join it. You're always a video ahead, and the videos you're getting are an uncensored, ad-free, extended version. And if you do join the Patreon, be sure to link your Discord and come chat with us in the Discord chat. We're in there most nights. There's always somebody in there every night. I'm in there fairly often and hanging out with everybody. All right, see you next time.